series. They wind up winning the series. But right now, one game over 580 and 79. They are officially eliminated from postseason play with that defeat.
And you can kind of see the looks on the faces in that dugout. They kind of know. They were looking at that scoreboard. They know exactly what they needed to do to make a run at this. And unfortunately tonight, that was it.
So that's how it ends in 2024 for the Red Sox, at least unofficially. 3 more games to go, Friday, Saturday, Sunday against Tampa Bay. We will have our final show of the year on Monday evening right here on 98.5 The Sports Hub, 6 to 7 p.m. And then that'll be it for the baseball hour, just as that was it for the Red Sox last night in Toronto against the Blue Jays. Red Sox lose, mathematically eliminated now from playoff contention. They are 80 and 79 with 3 games to go. The best they can do is 83 and 79. So the question tonight, the activity tonight on the baseball hour, if you would like to join, and a few of you are already online, but 617-779-0985. The final verdict. Give it to me. What is your final verdict on the 2024 Red Sox season? And let me tell you how my day began. Because even though we all knew this was coming, there is always some finality to it. And you can now officially turn the page and start assessing the Red Sox for 2025, looking at the bigger picture, what their needs are, what's out there, what are the general manager and manager saying in the aftermath of the elimination, and what are they going to say next week when they meet the media for the official postmortem over at Fenway Park. All that sort of stuff. But let me start with this. That earlier in the day today, I went on Twitter, I looked up some numbers on the Red Sox, and I tweeted out with 3 games remaining in the 2024 season, the Red Sox are now 436 and 431 since their 2018 World Series win. Starting in 2019, the Red Sox, over the span of what now amounts to 6 seasons, have been a 500 team. They've made the playoffs once. They have finished last 3 times. They have finished with no more than 84 wins in 5 of those 6 seasons. And after I put that out there, Bill Burt, whom I mentioned, and those of you who don't know Bill has been a longtime sports writer, reporter, and editor at the Lawrence Eagle Tribune, but in the Boston area, most frequently down at Foxborough, but spent his fair share of time at Fenway Park, covering the Red Sox over the years, and frankly, he's covered every team in town. You might remember Bill from years ago on The Big Show. I know Jimmy Stewart does. But Bill Burt replied to my tweet, which really, again, was just a statement of what the Red Sox record has been. 436 and 431 over the last 6 years. Bill Burt replied to me, I disagree with this take. And by the way, just before you even start, I'm not angry. I've known Billy a long time. I like Bill.
You sound it, though.
I disagree. I know I always sound angry. I disagree with this take, he writes. I know it's a fact, but point of it, this year was different. So different that Cora bought what Breslow was selling. We will be all in for 2025 and stayed. Just saying. 24 was kids, pieces, injuries. We got what we expected, if not a little more. Okay, and then I replied to that and said they ended up in the same place again, running in circles. So Jimmy Stewart, what I'm really eager to know is how many fans feel that way and how many fans feel like I do. Because the Red Sox are now at a crossroads again. I say this every offseason now, and I start to get agitated every time we end up here. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Was it a little entertaining in the middle of the year? Yes. So it was also a little entertaining in the middle of 2023. It was a little entertaining in the middle of 2022. Then the trade deadline came. It was disappointing. They bottomed out down the stretch, and they finished a few games under 500, or now in this case, maybe a few games over. They're no closer really to winning a championship again, I don't think. You can talk about the improvement of the pitching staff if you want, but I look at the pitching staff and I say, I don't think it's improved as much as they think they have. Tanner Houck, I'll give you. I said this last night. Brian Bayo, one bad half, one good half. Do you think you can rely on him next year? Because my answer is, I don't know. Houck, I think you can rely on. Cutter Crawford, can you rely on him next year? I don't know. If they were to come back with the same group, Houck, Bayo, Crawford, are you confident that that's going to be good enough just if those three guys continue to improve?
No.
Because I'm not. Thank you, Jimmy. So this is the question. Meanwhile, the Red Sox in the last couple of years have ranked close to the middle of Major League Baseball in payroll. That might change based on some of the things that Sam Kennedy said.
It won't.
Back over the winter. It might not. I don't know. I don't know what to believe anymore with the Red Sox. What I do know is there are some certain truths that I believe in and that I think will forever remain true. One of which is winning requires some risk. Some. And frequently some high risk. So if you want to win, sometimes you have to extend a little bit further on a contract than you want. Go a little bit further on a trade than you really want to. You have to do the things that are necessary to get pieces that put you over the top. And could it blow up in your face? Yep, it could. But that's generally what it takes. You often have to spend beyond your means. You have to maybe, again, trade away a prospect you don't want to trade. And I can give you countless examples. When Theo Epstein won with the Chicago Cubs, and he talked about acquiring Aroldis Chapman, he said, we're at a stage now where we have to take some risk. We have to take some short-term risk. And when the Red Sox made trades in the past to put them over the hump to win World Series, you know what they did? They took on risk. They signed some big contracts, and they signed players who they thought could get them over the top. Some years it worked, and in years like 2011, it didn't. Did they disappear and collapse and crumble and never recover because they took some risks that didn't pan out over the years? Nope. Now they're afraid to take the risks. And that's the part that worries me the most, because with no risk, there is no reward. And I think that's where we are with this baseball team. So what's coming in the future? I don't know. I'd love to tell you that I am more confident that the Red Sox are going to go out during this coming off season and that they are going to spend money or make a big trade. I'm not convinced. And some of the things that Craig Breslow has said in the last 24 hours tell me that, which we'll get to. We'll open up the phones right away, 617-779-0985. Some of you have been on hold here for a little while, so we'll take you in order of weight. We'll kick it off with Nick in Fall River tonight. He's on line 7. Go ahead, Nick.
Hey, Mazz, what's up? I agree with you completely with the Red Sox. I think we're kind of the same mindset. I feel like the season's a fail, and I'm one of like the younger demographic Red Sox fans. I'm 28. I've been watching them since I was a kid. And growing up, they used to not buy their World Series, but they understood how to have a good mix, like you said before on the show, of good young talent and some really high price, but really, really, really good players. And they don't have any of that anymore. They've signed one legit player in Devers, and they've let all the other ones like Betts and Bogarts, and they've let them walk out the door, and they decided not to keep any of them. And until they have an everyday lineup with 9 legit players, they don't all got to be studs, and a real rotation of 5 guys, they're not going to win crap. They're going to be the same 500 team that they've been for 6 years. It's a joke.
So, Nick, again, when you look at back and you look at what they became and what they were willing to do to win, for the first years of this ownership group, boy, they left no stone unturned. They really didn't. It was, boy, were they fun to watch. They were fun to cover. They were fun to talk about. They were driven. It was all about winning, and people ate it up. We ate it up. Now, have we been spoiled since then? Probably. That's got to be part of the reason why they have backed off and become what they've become. In the same breath, I'll tell you that they expanded Fenway Park so that it could garner them 3 million fans a year, and now they're falling 500,000 short. And that has happened now basically 3 years in a row. I'd like to think they want the ballpark full. I don't think they want empty seats after expanding the ballpark, because then why expand it? Why make it bigger? I want to share with you something Craig Breslow said. And this was after last night's game, talking about the direction of the team, what they've accomplished, what they didn't accomplish. And in fairness to Breslow, he did say at the end of the day, it's about winning at the big league level. So he's not feeding you some of the really scary stuff that was coming out of the mouth of Chaim Bloom about, we got to balance the future and the short term, because everybody knows that stuff. With Chaim Bloom, it almost felt outwardly he was more interested in the Baseball America ranking and the farm system than he was in winning at the big league level. Craig Breslow, Freudian slip, made sure not to say that last night. Made sure. But he did say this rather. And I'm reading the quote directly. I think we have seen the ability to be competitive in the AL East with a young group that's really exciting, athletic, really dynamic, he said. I think we have seen the ability to be competitive in the AL East. That was the start of the sentence. They're 13 games out of first place in the American League East. 13 games out. That is seeing that the Red Sox can be competitive. Finishing within 13 games of first place now qualifies as seeing that we can be competitive. What, because they contended for the third wild card spot? And even then, they were never in control of it over the final 8 weeks of the season? So that's what the goal is now? To contend for 86 wins when years ago the franchise goal was 95? 95. At the height of the Theo Epstein era, 5 years into this ownership group, the goals were 95 wins a year, we'll make the playoffs, and we want an above-average player at every position on the field. Those were the goals. Now the goals have dropped to the point where we're happy to go 82 and 80 or 80 and 79, depending on what the last 3 games are going to be. We're okay with 80 and 79 because we know we can be competitive in the AL East. No, you're not competitive in the division. You're competitive for the wild card, the third wild card. And you were barely competitive for it. Frankly, I'm reluctant to even say that because you faded down the stretch. They were never in possession of that spot basically over the final 2 months. Never. So this is what it's become. Something's got to change or this is just going to, the Red Sox are going to continue to be what they've been, which is largely irrelevant. I see a number of you lined up, and on days like this, you call. And there are some regulars among you who call frequently, who call every day. But those people are really the very vocal minority. Most of you don't call. You're calling today because it's official. And they've been buried. But the truth is, you don't really care the way you used to. And I'm not blaming you for it, by the way. Let me make that part clear. You don't. Because they have been so irrelevant that they've done nothing to draw you to the product. 617-779-0985. And by the way, I don't know if they're going to do anything this offseason to draw you to the product.
They won't.
That's the part that's scary. We'll be back with your calls and tell you more about what Breslow said, what Alex Cora said, and what Sam Kennedy will remind you what he said way back in February.
happy, you know, but like it's very quiet. It's very quiet, which is good, you know. Like I've been saying all along, you know, this is, nobody had outside the walls here. Nobody expected us to play all the way till now, you know, meaningful games. You know, our goal was to make it to the playoffs. It didn't happen, but it's a good learning experience for those kids over there. You know, obviously it's going to be a different group next year, but for them to think that they were almost there, you know, like, I mean, at one point it felt like we were a playoff caliber team, and then it just, you know, we missed the opportunity. Let's put it that way. You look around, you look at the teams that are fighting, you know, like we had it right there and we blew it.
So I give Alex Cora credit for saying that much. We blew it. Acknowledging their part in it, at least the uniform people's part in it. And again, I thought Craig Breslow also said this is not what we're shooting for. The goal is to win at the big league level. That's what the objective is. We didn't do that. And so he said the right thing. But the Red Sox are also married to this whole philosophy now of we're just going to pump it out through the minor league system. Which, by the way, we all like the minor league component of it. No one said that. But if you're trying to build just with young players, it's a hard way to win. At some point, you've got to take some risks. And you've got to sign some players or make some trades. In theory, I suppose if your minor league system is good enough, you can just make trades and keep replenishing those minor leaguers. But that's really hard to do unless you draft perfectly all the time. Because when you get good, what happens is obviously you draft later. So you start getting worse talent. You can't manipulate the system like you used to when Theo Epstein was the general manager. Can the Red Sox please take some effing risks? Can they please do that? I think there are still people who will watch. And I think a lot of them will come back. And a lot of people who will care. Maybe not like they used to. That's probably gone. But now, there is apathy, and there has been for a few years like I have not seen in a long time. And you want to tell me that people are going to the ballpark? Great. There are 500,000 seats under capacity-ish. Oh, out-of-towners are overrunning that ballpark every time a team comes in for the weekend during the summer. So those tickets aren't going to Bostonians, and there is zero buzz or discussion about the Red Sox. If people are going to the ballpark, it's because they want to sit there on a nice night and have a beer and a hot dog and maybe get themselves a lobster roll. And oh, by the way, you get to see a little bit of a baseball game while you're there. They might as well just open up a clam shack. Because the baseball isn't really selling any tickets or really drawing that many people to their televisions anymore. At least in my opinion. Steve in Miami. Steve, what do you got?
And he sent the page that
Steve
is important.
Steve, I'm going to put you on hold. You're not ready to go. Frank in Boston. Frank, what do you got?
First of all, 13 games behind the Yankees is a little bit of a joke because they're not that good this year. They're actually probably 17 games out of what you'd normally expect your AL East winner to deliver. But anyway, look, congrats to you guys on making it through another year in the salt mines. Thanks for doing this. I know it can't be easy to drag yourself in year after year to do the show, but as hard as it is for you to do the show...
Frank, let me just stop for a second. Let me jump in there. Okay, I joke about it, but the fact of the matter is I like the sport. I grew up watching the team, so I'm interested in them being good. Okay, I'm interested in them being good. It gets harder for everybody when they're irrelevant, not just me. Harder for everybody. I would love to know how many of you actually watched a full game this year. I bet you the number is microscopic. But go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, it's hard when they're losing, too, because it's no fun and it's fatiguing to be a fan when this is happening. And, you know, the issue is I don't think they care. And the phony extra wild card just lowers the bar enough for them to do the bare minimum to be an 84 to 88 win team in expectation. So they can say they are in it and milk the fan base and then overpromise when they're selling season tickets for the next year and then underdeliver. Then their execution is always so bad. They screw that up and they do worse than their plan for the illusion of contention, which is what happened this year once again. for the third year in a row. So my grade is F minus because they're recidivist failures.
Yeah, so Frank, look, I'm not going F minus. If you ask me the era, the last 6 years, I would tell you that's been a fail. There's no way in anybody's world the Red Sox should be going 500 over a 6-year span with the resources they have. And if you want to say it's not what it was, they're still getting 2.6 million fans in that ballpark. So somebody's paying for those tickets. It's not Bostonians all the time anymore. And it's not so hard to get a ticket anymore. But they're still making money. None of us dispute that. So, they're financially, I think they're doing, from an operational standpoint, I think they're doing fine because they've cut payroll. But they're just not, it doesn't feel like they really want to win all that badly anymore. They're just content to keep running it out there. Get their 85-win team if they're lucky, be on the cusp of contention, see what happens. It's just, to me, it's, we need some drama, some chase, some stakes. There has to be something to pursue. Zach and Haverhill. Zach, go ahead.
Hey, Tony, how you doing tonight? I mean, I can't say I'm surprised. In 2018, when they traded away a generational talent and Mookie Betts, they were just not going to pay any money. I mean, you are 100% right when you say they treat it like an insurance company. They're looking at the numbers. I mean, they've been snake bitten by Crawford, Sandoval, and Price. Now they're not going to spend any money. I mean, it's over better part of half a decade where we haven't got any playoff baseball besides 2021. I mean, playoff baseball besides playoff hockey is one of the best things in the world. You got every pitch matters. I mean, there's no way to spend money this year. They don't need one starter top line. They need two. Tanner Houck is a 3 until he proves he can handle the full load.
So, Zach, Zach, thank you for the call. So this is my question now. When people look at this team, Alex Cora talked about the pitchers the other night, how much success they had. I think he actually used the word great, which I busted his balls over. I don't know if they've been great. Houck had a good year. Okay, he didn't win the Cy Young, but he had a good year. The other two, they made 30 starts, but at the end of the day, so what? So they stayed healthy? I don't just want 30 starts. I want 30 good ones or 26 good ones. You follow me. You can have 4 bad ones. You want to give me a bad one every month and a half? Fine, no problem. But I want a good pitcher over 30 starts. Bayo and Crawford, relatively, were mediocre. Houck ranked in the top 15 of WAR among all pitchers in baseball. So I'll give you the modern metric stat. But Houck was good. The other two, middle of the pack at best. That's not good enough. So if they bring back the same group and they elevate the minor leaguers and continue to sign bargain free agents, you tell me, are they going to be good enough next year? Are they going to be good enough to convince you going into the year that they're going to be good enough? Are they going to capture your imagination? Are they going to draw you to the TV? Are they going to draw you to the ballpark if it's basically the same crew? Because I fear that's what they're going to do. And I'll tell you why when we come back after Kevin.
to be able to have that foundation of 30 starts, what does that represent for a pitcher?
You got to ask him, but I know that for us, all these kids that we pitched this season, not kids, man, they're 26, 27, right? But, they took a step forward, and that was the plan. Going into the season, when Lucas went down, and obviously G-Witt, they knew that they were going to pitch, and the way they finish in the season, let's see what happens. They've been great. Throwing strikes, inducing to in contact, keeping the ball in the ballpark, and giving us 5 or 6 innings every outing.
That's Alex Cora talking about the pitching staff, specifically Tanner Houck, Brian Bayo, Cutter Crawford. Those 3 guys. There's a reason why we play that for you again. We played it for you earlier in the week. We played it again today for a reason. Because Craig Breslow spoke about the pitching staff last night. There was a piece in The Athletic, I think it was Jen McCaffrey, asking Breslow about various areas of the ball club, and Cora for that matter, but mostly Breslow. And one of the things, for example, was the bullpen, Liam Hendriks, his role in the bullpen next year, et cetera, et cetera. When they got to the rotation, here's what Craig Breslow said. Tell me how this makes you feel as a fan. Here's what he said. The question was whether or not the Red Sox needed an ace, a number 1 starter at the front end of their rotation. Breslow replied, I think every team needs someone to front the rotation. I think the question is, what does that look like? Where does the availability come from? Do we have guys that can take another meaningful step forward and pitch at the front of the rotation? Because there were stretches this season where any number of guys pitched like a legitimate front of the rotation starter. And then he goes on to say, now, that said, of our system, we are certainly biased in the direction of position players, and that's something we have to address, so we will absolutely look to do that. Meaning, they would be interested in trading for a starter. But in the same breath, he tells you, I think every team needs someone to front the rotation. I think the question is, what does that look like? Do we have guys that can take another meaningful step forward and pitch at the front of the rotation? Now, if you ask me, you know what they're telling you? Well, the guys we had are pretty good. I mean, we bring them back and they make another jump forward, we'll be fine. And as I said earlier today on Felger and Mazz, Lucas Giolito, remember, we signed him. He couldn't pitch because he got hurt. We're getting him back, too. And Liam Hendriks is going to join the bullpen. Our defense hurt our pitching because Trevor Story wasn't there all year. I think you saw what a difference he makes. So what they're going to tell you is, well, the 3 guys we have coming back all did well, and we think they're still getting better. Lucas Giolito's coming back. Our bullpen's going to have Liam Hendriks, and Trevor Story's going to be back. If it were me, I would look at that and say, oh, I get it. They're not going to spend again. Or they're not going to go extend themselves to find other solutions and safeguard against the fact that Story might get hurt. He's basically missed the last 2 years. And that Lucas Giolito sucked before he got hurt. Or that Cutter Crawford and Brian Bayo for at least half the year really weren't very good. So they're going to try to feed you on this potential. And I'm tired of waiting for potential. Tired of it. And you are too. In fact, many of you are so tired that you left. See, this is the part that I'm stunned by with the Red Sox, is that people have walked away and they still have not altered their behavior. So now, am I glad that they're building a farm system? Of course. Yes. Do you have to keep all of them? They've been way too slow to try to augment. Way too slow. Gino's in a car. Go ahead, Gino.
Hey, man. So earlier on in the season when they promoted the 3 big prospects, Teal, Anthony, and Mayer to AAA, that to me kind of gave me the impression that they're going to hitch the wagon to those guys, and those are going to be the ones, and they're going to be the reason why we contend again, or potentially we contend again. So if that's the case, why don't we just make an effort to cut our losses with guys like Yoshida? I know he just said we're going to try to keep Story, but try to cut our losses with Story. And then eventually, if Kyle Teal, I know Connor Wong has defensive flexibility, but if Teal's going to be your guy and you're going to make that clear, then why don't you, try to see and test the market for Wong and see what kind of value you can get for him?
So, Gino, look, I think they're going to do some of that, but in the same breath, here's what I'll tell you. Connor Wong is not going to get you as much as you think he is on the market. Neither is Yoshida. Yoshida is a slow DH who can't play the outfield and makes $18 million and doesn't hit for enough power. Who's going to give you anything for that? So I understand that you want to get rid of some of the dead weight. I understand that. It makes sense. But that's not going to get you any kind of return. And the part about the big three, quote unquote, which is really the big four if you want to add Christian Campbell. But you say you hitch your wagons to those guys. None of them pitch. And the other thing is, are they all going to come at the same time? Are you going to integrate and baptize 4 minor leaguers in a big league lineup at the same time? No shot. They're going to come one at a time, I think. 2 tops. You're going to spread them out. And they might not all be good at the beginning. In fact, none of them might be good at the beginning. So, you have to integrate them, allow them to adapt to the major leagues in a situation where not too much is being asked of them. And then meanwhile, Tristan Casas missed 2/3 of this year. So he's sort of starting over again. I mean, it's, in theory, you say, oh, we got the kids are all coming. But when you really start to think it out, so what, are they all going to play at once? And how long is it before they're good? It's not like they just show up and turn into all-stars. It took Jaron Duran 3 years to figure it out. It's not just like show up and win. It doesn't work that way, or it rarely does. Christian in Manchester. Go ahead, Christian.
Hey, Mazz, what's going on? So I was just taking a look at some of the revenue numbers that were going on from 2021 to 2023 for the Red Sox. The revenue for the Red Sox has only dropped 3 years. It's dropped in 2009 by a little over percent, dropped 2020 due to COVID, and then 2023 is the first time it's dropped significantly for no other reason. It's dropped by about 2.5%. So maybe that kind of signal shows the Red Sox ownership. Maybe I got to change things up.
Okay, so Christian, when you say the revenue is dropped, you're talking about total revenue?
Total revenue, yeah. No cost, no profit, just revenue.
Okay. So thank you. So, and I should have asked him this, but I presume he means from the year before. In other words, the revenue goes up every year. But I would also tell you, ticket prices go up every year. Everything goes up every year. So there are years where I would say, I would expect their revenue to go up every year. The question is whether or not their payroll is considering to go up at a commensurate rate. And I don't think it is anymore. And I would also tell you that the ballpark is emptier than it was 10 years ago. I think that's pretty clear. So the Red Sox, again, when they expanded Fenway Park, this is an important thing. When they expanded Fenway Park, they wanted to get to 37,500 capacity. They got a little bit more than that. But the idea was if they could get 37.5 into the ballpark every night, 3 million fans. The target was 3 million. That's what they wanted. They wanted to expand the ballpark so that their annual attendance could be 3 million. Then you can do the math from there. But that was the number that they thought, that's our max. To max out the size of this facility and get maximum ticket revenue, we have to get 3 million fans. Depending on what you want to believe and what numbers you use, they have failed to reach that number by 10 or 15% in each of the last 3 years. So that by definition means they're not maxing out in terms of revenue. They're not. So they are paying some sort of price. And if we start talking about NESN, TV ratings are down. Certainly the entire regional sports network, the RSNs, That whole model is getting blown to smithereens, as it is in the whole of the broadcasting world. Streaming has changed everything. People aren't talking about the team. They're not watching the team with regularity. And I can tell you they are certainly not as connected to the team as they were. That part's pretty clear for all of us. And I'll admit, I'm one of them. I'm not as connected to the team as I used to be. Why should I be? How can I be? And you feel the same way. Again, how many of you, honestly, have watched a full game from beginning to end this year? How many? You'll watch 17 Patriots games even when they suck. You watch Celtics games because they were in the playoffs, and during the regular season there were some good ones, and you knew what kind of team you had. It was worth the investment because of what you were getting back. But now with the Red Sox, well, the investment's not worth it anymore. Not for you. And again, I'm not telling you should. I'm just telling you the reality of it. And that's their fault. That's on them. They don't give you a reason to dig in anymore. And this has gone on for years. It's not as if overnight everybody said, I'm not going to watch baseball anymore. No, they've slowly but steadily pushed you away. They brought in a general manager after Dave Dombrowski, whose 4-year stint led them really nowhere. Did significant damage. Now they've brought in another guy who's basically employing the same philosophy, but is a little more savvy politically, and will say things like the objective is to win at the major league level, when the old guy was really more interested, at least it felt like he was, high and bloom in the minor league system. Look at our minor league ranking. What's our minor league system? The fans don't care. So they've pushed you away over a span of about 6 years. That's not going to change overnight. And sadly, I'm not sure they really want it to change. That's the part that's most alarming. Cooper's in a car. Go ahead, Cooper.
Hey, Tony, I love the show, but you just described exactly how I feel as a fan. I love the Red Sox. I used to watch like 120 games a year, but it's gotten to the point where I watch maybe 9 innings of baseball this year. I just have no interest in the team. It's a boring team, and I have no interest in wasting time watching a team that's fighting for a second wild card spot. And all I hear about is how great these prospects are and how we should look forward to them coming up. But like you said before, how long is it going to take for them to get acclimated and actually be good? I, for one, hope that they do something this year, trade a good chunk of these prospects, get some legitimate starting pitching, because all your World Series teams had legitimate starting pitching. And until that happens, I'm just not interested in watching the team anymore. I haven't gone to a game. It's a worthless waste of time, and it's embarrassing for a major market that this is what our team's like. But thanks for taking my call, Tony. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the call, Cooper. Look, I think this is how everybody feels. You know, it's one thing to take this approach in a place like Tampa Bay, in Oakland, even Kansas City, although they went out and signed some players this past offseason. But you get the idea. These smaller markets don't have a choice. They just don't have the revenue. Baseball doesn't have a system like the NFL does where they split everything equally. The bigger market teams have an advantage. So when you're the Red Sox and you commit to a model in which you are basically a small market team, you lose your advantage. Now, the Red Sox would tell you, well, wait a minute. You know, we're still signing players. We signed Trevor Story. We signed Rafael Devers, and that's true. And yet those small market teams are still outperforming them. So, I look at it and say, this approach the Red Sox want to take, if it worked for them, I don't think we'd spend as much time bitching about it. We'd certainly want championships, and we'd question whether or not, hey, they're pretty good. If they just spent a little more, maybe they'd win the title. But we wouldn't be as detached as we are now. Now people are detached. So this whole small market, mid-market approach, they kind of suck at it. That's what I'm getting at. I'm not sure it's worked. in all these positional prospects they have? Again, where's the pitching? It's only going to get them so far. Toronto pumped out all types of positional prospects. Look at them now. What if you're the Blue Jays? Part 2. Bruins preseason coming up next. They're at New York tonight against the Rangers. Ryan Johnston and Bob Beers right here on 98.5 The Sports Hub. Headlines coming up as well. Kevin Majori. No, do we have headlines here, Jimmy? We don't, do we?
No, just Boston Bruins pregame.
Okay, there you go. Bruins and Rangers coming up right here on 98.5 The Sports Hub. We'll catch you next time.